once again. I'll press the button and
Sure.
then over to you, Keely.
Yep. How do we do?
Looks good.
Great.
That looks good to me. Can everyone else see that's okay? Just say that you thumbs up or yes. Excellent. Right,
Great.
over to you.
Awesome. Well, let's introduce ourselves a little. My name is Keely. I have been with Menlo 16 years. I'm primarily a software developer, though you'll see that we wear different hats when needed, from tour guide to teacher to office assistant, whatever it is we need.
Yes, and hi, my name is Helen. I am also a software developer at Menlo primarily. I've been with the team for I think over 3.5 years, so a fraction of Keely's time, but it's always a blast because we get to, like Keely said, wear different hats and also just explore different sides of how to make customers and clients happy.
Yeah, and if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to them.
Yeah, I'll just shout out from time
Yeah.
to time. I'll stay on mute for most of it, but I'll shout out from time to time if there's any questions coming through. But
Great.
also if there's any ones that look like they're going to be longer answers, maybe I'll keep them, put them in the chat, and I'll keep a note, and we can come back to them at the end.
Awesome.
Great.
So we're going to share with you today a lot about what we do with our paired programming, and also pairing with other roles in our office. We're going to share a little bit about our joyful culture, and so let's get started.
So to start off, just to introduce what Menlo is, Menlo Innovations is a custom software design and development company. We are located in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the United States. The picture on the left that you see are James Goebel and Richard Sheridan, who are the co-founders of Menlo Innovations. So how Menlo started, just to give you a little bit of a background, is that Rich Sheridan, who is the CEO of Menlo and who wrote Joy Inc., was going through his career. He had sort of climbed the ladder of corporate and became a VP, but he was deeply dissatisfied as to how the industry mainly operated, the long times, the way we manage different projects, and he was just feeling very, very unsatisfied with where he was. So when the internet bubble burst and Rich found himself out of a job, he decided that was a great time to jumpstart a new and different way of improving the software industry and doing things differently. So he collaborated with James, who is the person on the left, who has some ideas about extreme programming, which is a software development framework. So they sort of tag teamed it and created Menlo Innovations with the intention of ending human suffering in the world as it relates to that technology. So that mission does not only apply to the end users who receive the products or who are suffering at the hands of technology. It also applies to the people who are developing the software, who are designing it and managing the different aspects of the project or the product life.
So if it was before COVID and we were all in our office, this is what our office looks like. It's an open collaborative space, no cubicles, no corner offices. Even our conference rooms have clear glass doors. Everybody sits together side by side, and you can see already in this picture there's a lot of pairing going on. We mainly do software design and development, though we also teach classes about how we do what we do, and also cultural change. We've had, last year we had, well, in 2019, we had over 2,000 visitors to our space. So as we've alluded to, there are the two books that Rich has written, Chief Joy Officer and Joy Inc. We like to point out that joy is not just happiness. It's not just happiness. People come to the space and that's like the number one question we get, which is, what is it, just happy all the time? You're just joyful all the time? And no, we're not just happy and joyful all the time. Joy to us is meaningful and shared. So it's the doing meaningful work and doing it together.
Mhm. And that includes failing together as well. You know, sometimes you miss deadlines, different obstacles show up, but we define joy as being able to take ownership as a team of those different setbacks and figuring out a solution to move forward together.
It's also not efficient. You know, we're not here to type code as fast as we can or build screens as fast as we can. We're here to be effective. And when we are effective, that's what creates the engagement and the meaningful work.
Right. And you can see that in this very open space where everyone is sitting shoulder to shoulder, there's going to be a lot of background noise. You know, there isn't that quiet space that you can put your earphones in and work in. In fact, we cannot put earphones on because we have to overhear and collaborate with each other. So that might seem ineffective or inefficient, but that is what allows us to cooperate with each other, collaborate, and also build relationships as a team.
So thriving business depends on thriving employees. Employees thrive because of the open culture, creates relationships and builds trust among our team members, which makes it possible for the joy to happen. Our team members trust each other to feel safe to share ideas, point out issues, say they don't know. That's a really big one in our space. I can't help you if I don't know what you are struggling with. So we really expect people to say, I don't know. And it's celebrated, not punished.
Mm-hmm. And that trust also helps people to step up in the sense that when we identify problems amongst the team, you are not afraid to point it out. One of the things at Menlo that happens is when someone complains about something, the first question you get is, okay, are you volunteering to run an experiment to fix that? So there is that sense of ownership that forces individuals to grow and thrive through that process of just collaborating and creates joy. So that allows the business to be elevated as a result of those individuals growing.
It's not perfect and it's not easy. We point this out because as you hear us talk, it may sound idyllic. So like, it's like, oh, they've just figured it all out and it's perfect and there's no problems. That is not true. We have the same problems that everybody else does. There's still communication issues. There's still clients that get mad. There's still deadlines we don't meet. So it's not a perfect situation. What we work to strive for, though, is to be transparent and then collaborate around the things we learn because of our transparency.
So the effectiveness of the work in our team is directly tied to the effective collaboration that we have amongst each other. So we can have one superhero who can do everything, but then that is a fallible solution because what happens when that person is not around anymore? So as much as we can, we are very intentional in our culture to collaborate with each other and create that very, I guess, close relationship as well as collaboration that we have. So collaboration can happen in multiple different ways. You can divide and conquer tasks. You can, delegate, and some people take a certain chunk, some people take others. What we usually use is co-creation. So pairing is what we use in our as our tool for collaboration for the most part. You can see that we are even pairing on the presentation right now.
So let's talk about that pairing and what does it look like and a little bit of logistics and things you need to be a good pair partner. We're going to start with a little time-lapse video here of pairing in person. This is a pair of developers, but this could be a pair of any sort of role in our space. It could be designers, it could be project managers. It's all going to look very similar. Perhaps not the energy drink, though. That seems to be a very developer thing. And you can watch them and you can see that they're talking to each other, they're pointing at the screen, the keyboard will go back and forth between them. You'll see there are people coming up to talk to them and interrupt them and ask questions. You see the keyboard pass to the other person now. And it really is co-creation. There isn't sitting back, there isn't ignoring, there isn't just one person doing work. You can see they turn around to talk to people together. They even got up together. So they don't work alone.
So you can see that well, I guess once March happened, we are no longer working in the Menlo space. That very open collaborative space, you can imagine is going to be very dangerous to spread COVID. So we all went home and are respectively working from home right now. So even though that has happened, we are still pairing in our remote settings. So this is what pairing virtually looks like. You can see the pair partners are communicating over a video call through the entire day that they're pairing together. You can see that they are joining a stand-up meeting right now together as a pair. They are coding together as well as doing other different tasks where they're planning for what they're building. That interruption of people walking over also happens here, although it's virtual. Sometimes you would find yourself just joined by two other Menlonians and they have a question for you, and that's very welcome. So we're trying to keep this collaboration as much as possible, even though we're in a remote setting, because we recognize the value that it has. And especially now that you can see right now that more people join them to just have a conversation with them regarding something else. So this has been very, very meaningful for me, because it feels isolating to be at home all the time during a pandemic. You don't really get to see your teammates as much as you would in the office. So it's wonderful to work with someone all day, every day, and just share and see everyone to collaborate with.
Mm-hmm. I see a question there in the chat. What tools are you using to get the collaboration? We have a variety of tools that we use back and forth. We use Google Meet, we use Zoom, we use TeamViewer, we've used Screen Connect. So whatever works for us at the time, we find them to work better or worse for particular situations. And some clients need us to use particular things. So we're not tied to a tool. It's whatever tool is going to solve our problem for us that we use.
Can I just jump in on that one?
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed, which I thought was really interesting, is when, as an organization, Menlo had to cope with moving remotely and this change to your working practices, an experimental approach was taken. And it looks like different team members were using different tools, and you were all trying different things, and just to see what worked. So it wasn't like a top-down, hey, we're all going to move to Zoom, or we're all going to move to Google Meet, or we're all going to use VS Code and share screens. Everyone seemed to kind of just work something out. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair. And it tends to go across project lines too. Like, we have several projects going on in the office, and what's working best for one project might not work for other projects. Some are using VS Code, and I think you see that on the screen. Some are using just screen sharing software with Eclipse because we're working in Java. It just depends on the application, the client, and what works. I see some questions. How are people matched? We're going to talk about that in depth a little later, but it is not always a junior and a senior. It can be juniors with juniors, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm. There's one more question before that. To have breaks being edited out. Yes, that time lapse was for shorter than half a day. So yes, we usually take lunch breaks. We just didn't include it here.
Yeah. Pairing remote, someone says, I have developers who keep telling me pairing remotely is exhausting and needed time alone to recover. How are you coping with digital burnout? So I would guess, my question to you is, are they pairing were they pairing in person too? Because whenever someone gets hired at Menlo, the first thing I make sure to tell them is that this is exhausting and you are going to be tired at the end of the day, regardless if we're doing this in person or we're doing this remotely. because you're on all day. You're talking all day, you're collaborating all day. It's 8 hours of being on. It is exhausting, but you get used to it. We of course take breaks. You know, we all take a lunch break, and there's often times during the day where I say, Helen, I want to get up for a few minutes, and I might go walk into my kitchen, get some water, or come back, just like I would at work.
Mm-hmm. And this is not to, you know, not acknowledge that there is that extra effort you have to put in when you're pairing remotely. I had an incident with my pair partner a few days ago where we were virtually connecting to multiple machines, and I was looking at one screen, highlighting away and explaining ideas, and she, after a few minutes, stops me and says, "What are you talking about?" And I realized she was looking at a different screen than I. So there is that extra effort of making sure you're all, you know, looking at the same thing and are on the same page. But like Keely mentioned, if that skill of pairing is already there in person, it's a lot easier to adapt to the remote setting.
Yeah. And then someone else asked, how do you discover who's doing whom and with what? So we have a couple ways. We have a big spreadsheet that you update at the beginning of the day to say who you're with and where your Google Meet is. So if I need to find somebody, I go to that spreadsheet and I look up Ellen's name, and there's her Google Meet link, and I can just jump into her room if I need her. We also have a company Zoom account. So everybody is on Zoom. You can chat there. We also have Google. You could chat there if you needed to. So there's a couple different ways, but the way we figured it out is looking at that spreadsheet. We also have a stand-up meeting every day at 10 o'clock that we still do through Zoom, and everyone says who they are and what they're doing. So that's one way. Yeah, go create a spreadsheet right now. It's good. And so, and there's a schedule that goes out every week, so we know exactly who's paired with whom and when. So every week that schedule goes out on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you self-manage or do you have project managers? We have project managers. They're in charge of who goes on what project when, and there's lots of reasons that they choose why. So you know, that could be from rotating people. We rotate people through projects. We want to make sure that we are rotating people so that we're not getting towers of knowledge, and we're going to talk about that. All right, so how did it start? This is pictures from, if you've read Joy Inc., the original Java factory at Interface Systems where Rich and James met. They were working in a very traditional environment with cubes and you know, lone programmers and those kinds of things. And Rich was realizing that there was a better way. He hired James as a consultant, and they were reading and learning about extreme programming at the time. And they were a printing company, but the company was no longer using their factory space to actually print, because now they were doing everything online and they were creating software for printers and not actually printing. So they had this factory space, and it is what it is. It's literally a factory. They moved all of the factory machines out. They brought in these tables. They set up computers. You can see they put things on the walls, and they basically told their team, we're going to do this, and we're going to be using the new technology at the time, which was Java, and we're starting a new project. You don't have to come and work on this project. If you don't want to pair and you don't want to be in this environment, that's okay. We need people to work on maintain our products and work in the old code base. And if you want to keep doing that, that's totally fine. And they could do that. But if you want to come work on this new project and this new technology, you're going to have to come work in this way. And we're going to try it for 2 to 4 weeks, and then we're going to evaluate it and see how we like it. And so that's what the first thing is when they started, is they gave people an out. If it was too scary or something they didn't want to do, it's fine. Here's something that you can keep doing. And there's no harm, no foul. You're not going to lose your job. Then they gave them an incentive. Oh, new technology, new thing. Yeah, I really want to do that new technology and that new thing. I'm going to try this new way of doing it. And then they gave it a time frame and the ability to give feedback on it. often when we hear people start, they just say, all right, you're pairing, go. And there's no training, there's no discussion, there's no way to say, I don't want to do this, this isn't what I signed up for. There's no way to even like dip your toe in. It can't be an all or nothing when you start, it's too difficult. So why do you want to pair?
Yes, exactly.
Well, we pair because we want to solve problems. To us, pairing is just a tool. It's a tool that helps us solve a bunch of different problems that we see with traditional software development. So let's talk about what those problems are that can help us with. Problems usually have a side effect of causing pain. So let's talk about the pain that individuals in a corporation might feel. I can't go on vacation because no one knows what I'm working on. We have never denied vacation ever. And when you go on vacation, you don't have to take a cell phone, you don't have to take a laptop. You just get to go on vacation and be on vacation.
And the best part is you can stay on vacation, but there's also not a pile of work waiting for you when you return.
That's
so
true.
I think that is the most relaxing aspect of a vacation is to just know that it's taken care of and you can relax.
I never get to work on new projects. We find that people get pigeonholed once they know something and are the hero of that project. And that can be very painful for programmers, especially. I remember we were working with a company that their business was coupons. So in America, a lot of people get this blue envelope in the mail and it has coupons in it. And it's kind of like most of us see it as junk mail. But this company was basically, that's what they were doing. They were doing the paper coupons and digital coupons. And we were pairing and working with their programmers. One day, one of their programmers came in and just had this light bulb moment of like, I'm so jealous of you. Every day I go to work and I work on coupons. And that's the only thing I'm ever going to work on. He just was so disheartened by the fact that he had seen outside of his office and he sees people in our office getting to work on different things and rotating around. And he was like, damn, I'm going to be stuck doing coupons for the rest of my life.
The other one is, this is more programmer oriented, but when you're collaborating in a code base, my coworkers think they write maintainable code, but I can't maintain it. So taking over someone's work and not being able to successfully understand it and expand upon that work is another complaint that people can have in a traditional working environment. The other is having to work long hours before every release, and no one else can help you to accelerate your progress because you're the only one who knows what's going on. So you have to pull all-nighters and spend more than 40 hours per week to be able to meet your deadline. And the other is feeling isolated from the rest of teammates. That we sort of mentioned this earlier on, but when we're working on our own tasks, especially if we're heads down and focused, that does not give us a lot of time to interact with the rest of our teammates at large. So even though even when we're not working from home, that sense of pairing with someone helps us to just always be with someone all day and be able to communicate and share during our work hours.
We keep building it the wrong way and we can't agree on a path forward. We keep making the same mistakes. If you're in the lone wolf and you're heads down and you're doing without collaborating around you, it's very easy to keep making the same mistakes on different projects or different situations because you're not learning from other people's mistakes. So the business also experiences pain and problems. We can't train new hires to be productive because they don't understand our domain. That's a complaint we often hear. Well, no one's going to be able to do this. They don't understand what we do. We're so special. Resources are not flexible, tied up, and overbooked, so we cannot accelerate projects. They become more important. If you're working in a company where multiple projects are happening at a time, or you're a client-based company, the priorities of projects change quickly. And so with pairing, we can be able to be more flexible on these situations.
Mhm. We're spending a third of our budget on bug fixes. So production's done by many different lone developers. And then by the end of the day, you find a lot of different bugs because they're not as quality as, a collective mindset of work. So spending a lot of their time fixing up code before releases is another major issue that a lot of our clients face. And I don't know how
to grow our team members.
Yes. So even though we hire more people, getting people up to speed really quickly is another problem, right? People need some time to learn the code base and then get a grasp over the technology and then start getting productive. So that's another issue that we see a lot.
So why do we want to try pairing to solve these pain points? Number one thing is we're trying to break down towers of knowledge. When you walk into our office or talk to our programmers, there's not just one person that knows a SQL database, or just one person that knows about Docker, or just one person that knows about the domain of something. We're all working to have knowledge about everything as fast as we can so that we are flexible and that we can move people around. So we don't want to break down those towers of knowledge. And then from the flip side, I want to be able to go on vacation. I want to be able to take breaks. I need to go to the doctor's office. Whatever it is, I know that there are other people in the office that can do the things that I was doing, and I get to take my break without hurting the business.
To create a learning organization and to cross-train each other. So when we're mainly a custom software development company, so you can imagine that we work with many different domains and many different technologies. So a lot of people come with different backgrounds or have worked on a certain technology. Being able to have the rest of the team learn from the people who already know a technology by rotating them and pairing them with each other is a very valuable gain that a company gets. We don't have to schedule a certain time or a week-long training to do something. We're able to learn on the job as we go. And cross-training each other, it's not only even among similar roles. For instance, when someone on the marketing team left, I was able to rotate in and be trained on how to do the marketing aspect of our job, of our company, and be able to contribute to that. So that immensely allows us to grow, scale up and down the team needs as much as we would like, and adds flexibility to us.
So I can think of 3 clients off the top of my head that these two situations got them in trouble when they weren't managing towers of knowledge or cross-training. We code name all of our projects. So I'm going to say Project Rome, and it's fine that it's Project Rome because it's the code name. So Project Rome, they came to us and they had 3 programmers that were working on their project, and they all at exactly the same time decided they were done. They didn't want to work on this anymore, and they were leaving, and left the owner of this product like high and dry, like didn't have anybody to work on it. And he sure wished he had broken down those towers of knowledge, and he had some way of keeping the software going. He came to us and has reaped the benefits of being able to do that. We've had people that worked on his project leave, and we can keep going on his project because we're rotating people around. Similarly, in a sadder story, we've had several clients come to us where their only programmer had an illness or had passed away, and they had no one that knew the system, no one that could help them get their code out of the source control, get their code back up on the server, whatever it is they needed. They didn't have anybody, and they didn't plan for it. So in the same vein, we want to create flexible teams that can scale projects up and down. So when you're working on multiple projects in a company, that there isn't always a consistent need on every project. Some months we need more people on project A than we need on project B, and vice versa. This way we can be flexible and we can scale those projects up and down as our clients need at a drop of a hat, because all we have to do is split up a pair and add more people, or reduce by taking away people, maybe putting them on another project and splitting pairs on that project up.
Mhm. I remember there was one project, another code name is Project Dixon, where when we were doing planning at one of our iterations, the client came and told us, I need to ramp up because we've promised this to our customers at a marketing meeting yesterday, so we have to get it done by next week. So we had to go from 3 pairs of developers on that project, I think, to 6 or 5 pairs of developers on that project. So although the other devs were working on other projects, they already have context. So we were able to accommodate that in the following week by fully staffing that project as needed and being able to meet that deadline. So that's incredible.
It's easy because all we have to do is split those 3 pairs up. We now have 6 people. We can slot in 6 new people, and now we've doubled the project team. It doesn't mean we're going twice as fast, but we can go faster. We want to reduce defects and create higher quality products through the pairing. We are doing that where it's a constant review, whether that's developers, where it's a constant code review, or designers or PMs. When you're working together, it's like a constant review, and it's not in a like stressful way. It's like if Helen is the one at the keyboard and I'm her pair partner and she's typing in an if statement, I might say, hey, why did you choose that? I was thinking it was supposed to be this. And then we could have a quick discussion about it and figure out which way we need to go. And then whatever mistake we would have made alone, we've now fixed it immediately.
Mm-hmm. And the other
Finally,
thing,
trust and communication. Go ahead, Helen.
We keep saying it's funny.
It
is building trust and communication effectively as a team. So Keely and I are pairing, all day today, and you talk about different things when you're pairing. You're not 100% of the time talking about what you're working on. So you get to know about people's families, their life, and that helps you build that trust and become vulnerable with your coworkers instead of being able to not being able to communicate and connect with them. So it's a wonderful tool to build relationships amongst the team. And then when we would rotate, I would go pair with someone else, Keely goes and pairs with someone else. So this sort of like spreads that friendship amongst the company, if you will.
Yeah, we're building relationships with each other, and relationships foster trust. And that comes very important when we get to something tough or hard, or a place where the client's not happy. We need to be able to trust that our pair partners are going to be there for us and to make us look good. So individual and businesses' pain is the same. We're talking about the same pain. It's just felt differently. And these outcomes help us reduce pain for both roles, not only for the pain that individuals feel, but also for pain that the business as a whole can feel. So just to put it out there, isn't it going to be slower? This is probably from a pairing perspective, a number one question. Well, aren't you going slower? Why do I have to pay for 2 people to get the same amount of work done? So let's take a look. I get less accomplished when paired with a new team member. True. It takes me longer to get new team members up to speed. Yep, I could just do it myself. I could have coded in the time it took me to explain it. Teaching a new team member Java that doesn't know it slows me down. I can create a solution faster with a senior person. These are all true statements.
Mm-hmm.
But if we take a closer look at these statements, they're focused on the individual. It's all about I or me. And when we're talking about an extreme programming team, a Scrum team, just any team in together, we need to be talking about the team. And we want the team to be better and the team to be more effective, not the individuals. So,
And
go ahead.
Just before you continue on, and this sort of fosters a mindset of stewardship versus ownership. It's not about Keely wrote this line of code, so I cannot change it, I can't touch it. It's more about what is the best quality of work we can deliver, and that is always open to revision, comments from others, and feedback from others to be able to deliver the best quality as a team together to our clients.
So is pairing faster, better, cheaper? Yes, in some sense, the team will communicate faster, better, cheaper, leading to sustainable delivery of quality. And that's what we're looking for. We're working to be effective as a team. No, the individual programmer, the individual person doing work, whether you're programming or designing, does not produce lines of code faster, better, cheaper. And that's not what we're looking for. It's not a typing contest. It's not a how fast can we produce code. It's about solving the problems for our clients. So let's take a look at some pairing. And what does bad pairing look like? You can tell even from the body language of these two guys that things are not going well.
You can see that collaboration isn't really happening at the moment. On the left picture, this is a staged picture, just so you know. We staged a bad pairing at Menlo so we could take pictures for a presentation.
You gave it away, Helen.
Yeah, it's just too good. But it can happen. So in the left picture, if you see Ori is the person with the earphones on, he's not even willing to listen to his partner's input. He is just completely doing his own thing. And you can see here his pair partner, Kyler, just sort of bored and very tuned out and not engaged in what they're working on. So no one in that pair is trying to engage the other person and help them in the core creation. And on the right, you can see Ori's frustration because his sport partner is not contributing and working with him at all. He's completely on his phone and in another world. So that's also another pairing where you're not engaged, you're not trying to collaborate with your pair partner or showing an effort, including body language and verbally as well.
And you can see in the second picture, there's something clearly wrong. I mean, like if this was the signals I was getting from my pair partner, I'd be like, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? How can I help? So when can it fail? It fails when pair partners compete with each other. So if you are in a pairing and you're just trying to one up each other, or you're trying to be the best, or you're trying to impress the boss because you want the raise over someone else, the pairing's going to fail. You have to be a team together. It can't be a competition.
It also happens when there are imbalanced relationships within the team. For instance, if someone has more seniority or is more well listened to in the team and they end up steamrolling their pair partner, that's not a good dynamic. So we have to make sure that both their pair partners, no matter the level of expertise or seniority, they have to be able to give each other space to be able to work together and contribute, because everyone's unique and brings something different to the table. And as a pair partner, we have to recognize that and allow that.
Mm-hmm. So what does good pairing look like? Well, this is Molly and Eric. They happen to be some of our designers. You can see them, their chairs are tilted towards each other. They're looking at each other when they're talking. They're collaborating with all the materials in front of them. There's not just a piece of paper in front of Molly and she's hoarding it or something. And the high five picture, that really does happen, where people get excited and things happen and good things happen and they high five each other. And while this was staged and you can see them giggling about it, but it really, like, that is a sentiment, that is something that when it happens in the office, you know that pairing's going well.
And people want to join into the celebration too. I think because we have so many different pairs, people model that good pairing behavior around you all the time. So when you see a high five, you go and ask, what happened? Because you want to celebrate with them as a team. It's exciting.
So this success happens, first of all, when the pair has a shared purpose. Now, we have a lot of shared purposes at Menlo, but ultimately, the most important shared purpose we have is the task we're trying to accomplish, which we use story cards to define those tasks. That is the first shared purpose. We've got to accomplish this together for the client. After that, it's solving bigger problems for the client. It's being a good Menlonian and doing good things for Menlo's business. It's trying to meet our mission statement.
And it's also successful when you trust your pair partner and are vulnerable with them and communicate. When we are having a rough day, the first responsibility is coming clean with your pair partner to say, okay, I may not be on my game 100% today because I just had a rough day. So then in that case, your pair partner would, make up for that and support you in any way. So we have to be able to share that and be open with each other. It's also successful when we practice the skill of pairing. Pairing is not just an activity. It's very difficult to just throw two people together and say, okay, pair, go. It's tough. We have to understand the other person and learn how to work with them. So that's a skill that builds up over time. And it has to also be intentionally practiced to become a better pair partner.
And you'll see a really good pairing when there is constructive conflict. We had two guys, Gabe and Jeff, and they were at a whiteboard one day and just duking it out about an idea, disagreeing about each other's ideas and drawing different pictures on the whiteboard. And if you didn't know what was going on, you would have thought that they were really mad at each other. But almost as if like a Looney Tunes cartoon and the bell goes off for lunchtime at noon, they put down their whiteboard markers and they looked at each other and said, hey, where do you want to go for lunch? And they walked out the door, perfect friends, perfect happiness, and they were going to go have lunch together. There happened to be a client in the room and he turned to one of us and said, I have no idea what just happened. I thought those two guys were going to hit each other. But they were having constructive conflict. They were arguing about the problems and not about each other. We can sum all of this up into one statement that we say all the time: make your partner look good. It's about building trust. It's about being a good listener, a good communicator. Sum it all up: make your partner look good. Mm-hmm. And we even do that in the interview process.
Mm-hmm. So we can explain our interview process a little bit here. We call it the extreme interview. So there are 3 different rounds to our interview. So we vet the skill of trying to make your partner look good from the very first round of the interview, where we group all of the interview candidates together. We pair them together. And what the instruction that they're given is, you have the responsibility to get the candidate invited to the next round of the interview. So fully clearly say, it's not really about you. You have to help the person you're working with get hired. And that's very counterintuitive, you can imagine, but that's sort of that's what a good pair partner is. So that's the skill we look for. So what we do is we pair those candidates. We give them exercises to work on, and then a Menlonian would start in front of them and observe their behavior. So we're seeing their collaborative skills and how they work with each other. So it's very easy to ask someone, are you a team, are you a team player? The answer is most probably going to be yes. But you don't know whether that's actually true or whether team player means a different thing to them than you. But in this scenario, we were able to actually see whether they exhibit those behaviors. So it helps us be able to see. We intentionally give them 1 sheet of paper and 1 pen, because that sort of simulates the shared keyboard and mouse that we have at Menlo. So we see the behaviors of, do they actually try to appear impressive in front of the Menlonians? Do they hog the sheet of paper? Do they always write using the pen, or do they share that with their partner? So we make sure that we observe the different things that we need to see in terms of collaboration in this first round of the interview.
In the next round of the interview and the rest of the interview, the next round is a 1-day interview where we bring in the candidates that have passed the first round that we call extreme interviewing. in for a full day of work at Menlo. They work with other Menlonians in the morning, one in the afternoon. And here's where we're evaluating their skill sets and can they learn and can they pass knowledge and can they communicate. If they make it through that, then they do a 3-week trial where they're working just like everyone else all day on real projects, and they're getting paid for all of these gigs. During that 1 day and 3-week process, we are providing feedback, and that is a big part of becoming a better pair partner. We give feedback to each other every day, and it's even more important during those interview process. And if you want to get better, you need to solicit feedback. You need to say at the end of the day to your pair partner, hey, what went well today? What did you like that I did? What didn't you like? And that can be scary and hard, but if you practice, it will get easier. Sometimes starting with the good things too, like what did I do today that went well? And it could be something as simple as, hey, when you drew that picture for me, that helped me understand better what you were talking about. And it could be something like, hey, you were typing too fast and I couldn't follow along. You know, things like that just help you be a better pair partner. So someone asked earlier, who's pairing with whom? We changed the pairs depending on the business goals. We may want to put an expert with an expert. There may be a reason to. Maybe we need to go fast. Maybe it's a scary bug that we haven't been able to fix in 3 weeks. Who knows? There's business goals. Expert and novice. Maybe that novice needs to learn something from the expert, or other way around, the expert may be a longtime programmer but have no idea about the domain, so they're pairing with the novice who knows about the domain, and they're sharing information back and forth. And there are reasons to put novices together as well. When you're pairing with someone who's at a similar skill level to you, you can be very empowering that you guys solve things together.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes a novice to novice pair might solve a problem that the experts didn't. There's a story where in one of the projects that during the older times that Menlo was working on, there was a bug where they could not identify what the problem was. So they paired 2 experts for a week. They didn't understand what was going on. They paired another 2 experts for a week that they didn't understand what was going on. So at the 3rd week, they just said, okay, let's just throw 2 people at it who may not know, the code base as much as the other people. So the novices looked at the code base, said, okay, we're not sure what's going on, but what if we just change the color of this button? And when they did, that exposed the actual culprit of the issue that was just eluding the experts for multiple weeks. So it has its benefits because people bring different things to the table.
Finally, when are we rotating? You can see here if we have a 3-pair team on week 1, we have the set of 6 people. And when we move over to week 2, we have the same set of 6 people. We've just rotated them between their pairs. And then week 3, we will rotate them again and make sure that they're pairing with different people. So we're rotating each week. And then as weeks go on, we'll start rotating people in and out of the project. It's not every week we get brand new people and we lose people that have been on the project. It's very strategic based on where we are in the project plan. But we want to be rotating people in. We don't want to just stay stagnant with the same people all the time. So we try to pick strategic places in the project plan to rotate people in.
One of our coworkers calls this a strategic square dance that we do on a weekly basis.
Yeah. So we want to encourage you, in the spirit of something we say at Menlo all the time, run the experiment and try some pairing. We'd love to hear from you about how it went, what struggles you're having, what things were good, but mostly find your own culture of joy. You're not going to make sure you know what problems you're trying to solve and why the tools and tricks that you're doing are going to solve those problems for you. And make your partner look good.
We have one question
Yeah.
in the chat. Simon asked, what is the level of staff loss and recruitment at Menlo? So to start with the recruitment happens on an as needed basis, because we have projects ending and starting at very different times. We we usually hire when we're really stretched thin and don't have enough team members to accommodate for that. So we can't say it's regular. What we do is just hold on to resumes as they come in, and we hold an XI event whenever we are in need. In terms of staff loss, I think we did some we crunched some numbers at some point, right, to understand where we are relative to the industry. Keely, I don't know if you remember.
I don't remember. Rich likes to say it's negative though, because we've had several boomerangs.
That's
Several, three or four people that have left and come back. So, but you can see just by the fact that we don't know the numbers, it's not an event that stresses us too much, because we've been breaking down those towers of knowledge and pairing and rotating people around. Yeah.
Wayne asks when the UK branch is opening.
No franchises in the work yet. We used to have this big poster at the wall that said Menlo Innovations World Headquarters. And we always laughed about it because we didn't have any other places.
Another question, James asks, what are the biggest challenges you found pair programming remotely, and how have you overcome those? That's a great question. I think one of the first things we struggled with initially was accessing other pairs when we have questions for them. So on a project, if you may have more than one pairs working on them, or you may need context from someone who worked on it at a different week. So at first, it was really difficult for us to know where to locate people and get help or get other advice. So one of our team members just created a spreadsheet one day and said, okay, let's find people here. This was sort of an outcome of a small experiment that we run before the pandemic hit. We wanted to make sure we were prepared for working remotely. So one of the internal projects we had, all the pairs stayed home and ran the experiment. So that day, people just created a spreadsheet with different links so that they can find each other. Mm-hmm. So she sort of brought that concept here, created can you go to the original copy tab, Keely?
Yeah, so you can see it, good.
Yes, okay. So there was a not so great looking version. This was the initial original version where people just threw in their names and the link to their video meetings and what they were doing. So through time, we refined that to be able to, sort of categorize the project names properly, and people kept updating that. So now I think that is the main solution to being able to access people and collaborate more effectively. Are there any other challenges you can think of, Gilly?
I think that just pairing remotely, it presents the challenge of not having physical things to interact with your pair partner with. I love drawing pictures, or I like to point at things, and I can't do that. So I've had to really increase my verbal communication, and so that's somewhat of a challenge. Yeah.
Hi, Keely. It's
yeah.
I found that as well. I use my hands a lot when I'm kind of describing something, and I've realised that I can't do that, and somehow there is a lack of making it real. I mean, you're still in the same space, but it is a little more difficult. You need to be a bit more planned to try and get that across via something like the video. I mean, there's all sorts of collaboration tools, but I find it quite refreshing. It's not the secret to collaboration isn't buying this piece of software or upgrading your Miro subscription to the premium level and you unlock this higher level of collaboration. It's actually practicing with your pair partner and improving the skill.
Yeah. One of the tricks I found recently was we were doing some matrix math, and my partner and I were trying to refresh ourselves on matrix multiplication and how did that work, and thinking back to our school days. And I ended up connecting my iPad to the Google Meet we were in, and then I was able to actually use my pencil on my iPad to draw the matrices and circle things. And I found that really refreshing because I just love drawing on a piece of paper to get my point across. What else we got?
I think the next question was, how does cross-domain pairing work? Is it ever sensible to get a coder learning marketing or vice versa?
That's a great question. So to answer the question of it being sensible, in our case, it was. Because the problem at the time that we were trying to solve was not needing to hire someone else to fill that position, because we had resources available in our team already that can do that job, but also losing that person who had, who was essentially a tower of knowledge for us for marketing, and being able to learn that skill and feel the need of the team without having to hire someone. So in that scenario, it did serve the purpose. It also helped us because we are, if a developer is working on the marketing piece, we know they're going to have to rotate from that role to do development when we have development roles. So that forces us to pair with someone and transfer that knowledge. So that helps distribute it a lot more instead of having one person dedicated to that role that will never go anywhere. So it really helped us, diffuse the knowledge in that purpose. How does cross-domain pairing work? The same way the regular pairing works. You pair the people who are doing the transferring and the absorbing of the knowledge, and you just execute together. So for us, what happened was, we paired with the person who was leaving. Sometimes it's a triple, 2 people that are learning and 1 person that was teaching. And we just did the work that she did throughout the day. And we asked questions and we took notes, and that was how we were able to do it. And sorry.
Ask a question. So but how does that work with your sort of non-programming roles? So like pre-sales or project management, do they work individually or as a pair?
They strategically pair. That's a great question. So project managers usually are assigned to different projects, and they don't always pair together, but they pair when they're sending a difficult email to the client, for instance, or when they're doing some expense reports that are complicated or tracking sheets. They would sort of pull each other and say, hey, can you help me work on this piece of task that I have to do? So it's not always that they pair, but they do recognize the value of it and pull each other in. In terms of pre-sales, we usually have our development and high-tech anthropology staff attending the pre-sales meetings. Our high-tech anthropologists, for those who don't know, are really, it's a mix of our business researchers, UX designers, and UI designers sort of meshed all together into one. So we make sure that, when you have 2 different, when the potential client has a specific need, we make sure that a developer is present and a high-tech anthropologist is present so that they can take different aspects of the project or the need and speak to it. So it really helps, if there's an existing code base or product, the developer will have a better understanding of that, and the high-tech anthropology will understand more the design and the targeted needs of the product.
That was great. I think the next question was, if pairs are together all day, 5 days a week, what is the working day length? Regarding other people's comments on burnout, has part-time pairing ever been tried? So
one thing to remember about us is that we are an hourly, we bill our clients hourly, and we also are hourly paid employees. So 8 hours is a working day. 8 hours are expected to pair together, and you're typically paired for a week at a time. As far as has part-time pairing been tried, there are times where we've switched, where you may have to switch in the middle of the day to go do something else, and then you get a new pair partner. So that's not really part-time pairing, but it is a switch. We have had a husband and wife that split time. So they were both working part-time, but they made up one full person. So that was kind of neat. As far as part-time, and if you're just getting started in your organization with pairing, I would really suggest taking it in small doses, you know, like say Wednesdays we're going to pair, or say every other morning we're going to pair, or something like that, and try it in small chunks to get used to it and start learning and practicing that skill.
That segues perfectly into the next question of any ideas how to start pairing whilst remote in teams that have never paired.
Yeah, again, small chunks and cameras. People don't like to think they don't like to be on cameras, and I'm one of those. It wasn't my favorite thing, but we have this little saying at work that computers don't have eyebrows. So you can't get the emotion or the understanding that you know, what's going on with your pair partner if you can't see them. So we really recommend having cameras.
Where were we up to? And was that the how to start pairing whilst in remote teams for people who have never paired before? Yeah. So Craig has asked, with different people working on different projects, how do you scope and cost work whilst taking into account different skill sets and skill levels?
So the people that estimate work are the people that are going to be doing the work. And when we're estimating from a perspective of a long-term plan or initial estimate for a project, we make sure to have different skill levels on the estimation team. And also we take into consideration past projects and how long those past projects took in the same kind of technologies or the same kind of domain. And we also put contingency in our plan as well.
And the other very helpful practice that helps us when it comes to planning and scoping is that we chunk our work into very small story cards. So they're really index cards that we write a small piece of functionality, estimate, and then put that in front of the client at the end of each iteration we have. So an iteration is typically a week long. So it's really the client that's managing the scope for you by prioritizing or authorizing you to work on those story cards versus others. So it's easier for us because we have that tight feedback loop of a week long to be able to manage the expectation of the client and also scale up and down as the needs of the client, depending on the pairs we have.
I think everyone just saw that one there. Can I ask a question though? Because it does remind me a little bit of sort of planning poker, whereas if you're doing an estimation and you can have cards that represent the size of a thing, and then you will get a load of people round, and you might have, you know, developers with a certain skill set, or you might have a designer who has worked on the system before, or maybe a project manager that's worked with that particular client before, and they will all have a slightly different perspective. So when you're estimating, is it all of the teams that are involved in the project, all of the pairs, are they all producing an estimate?
So yes, so the pairs sit together at a table, and every pair has their own sheet to record their estimates on. But the difference between what we're doing in planning poker is that it's all out loud, and we're talking about what we think our estimates are and why we think they're that. And if I overhear the pair next to me say, well, this sounds easy, it's only 2 hours. And I'm like, hey guys, did you know about this, this, and this? This might increase your estimate. They might change their estimate based on the knowledge that I have to give them. But in the end, we're guaranteed our estimate back. So when the project managers assign a story card to us as a pair, if they decide to assign it to us, we get our estimate back. So even if that other pair decided to estimate 2 hours and we decided to estimate 8 hours, we get 8 hours.
But also, if you estimate 2 hours, it's
You
like,
get 2
well,
hours.
if you say you can do it in 2 hours, then here's 2 hours. You know, you might be a bit more conservative with your estimation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we do. we do recognize that estimates are estimates. We're wrong at them a lot of the time. It doesn't mean we have to finish it in those 2 hours necessarily. It changes. Sometimes we learn something once we start looking at the code base. So we make sure that we communicate if our estimates change as early as possible to the project manager, so that he or she relays that to the client and are sort of up to speed on that.
Excellent. I'm not going to say, have you ever had to sack a client?
Oh,
But
you can ask that.
yeah, I could. Have you ever had to sack a client?
Yes, very nicely. Yeah, absolutely. There are points where there are some clients that think they want to work the way we work, and they think they want to do what we do, but in the end, they really don't want to. And we've had to say, it's time for us to go, and we're happy to transition this project any way you'd like us to. We're happy to do that, and we do that. We don't just ghost them. But yeah, there have been some clients that have said that we've had to say this, you don't really want to work the way we work.
But I guess that's not very common.
No, not terribly. It kind of goes to the next question, is how do you vet potential clients? A lot of education. The very first thing we do is we invite them to have a conversation with us, and then we invite them to come to one of our free virtual tours. They might have a video meet with one of our founders for half an hour or something like that, a talk, and every step along the way, we're educating them about what we do and how we do it and our process. And we want them to come in with as much transparency and knowledge as possible.
Mm-hmm. And there are certain requirements that we have of our clients. We need a stakeholder who's going to make the planning decisions and review the work that was done at the end of each iteration. So that's, I think, a requirement as part of our contract also, for them to assign someone for us to have that touch point connection.
Mm-hmm. We also vet based on domain as well. Like one time we had a guy come in, this was before robots that vacuumed or mowed your lawn was a thing, but he wanted to do a robot that mowed the lawn, and he had already had a lot of safety issues and wanted us to figure out how to get around the safety issues. And we were like, no, that's not for us. We don't want to get involved in that. So that's when we said no to.
But I suppose in some ways it's got to be a kind of like meeting of cultures with your client.
Yeah, definitely.
They see the advantages of this work culture and this approach and this kind of learning organization, because you've never worked with this medical instrument before. You don't know how it works. It's really complicated, but hey, this is a great way to learn. And once a few people have learned, this is a great way to scale up, and that's appealing to a client, because then they know that if an opportunity comes up to develop something in the future, then they're not relying on that one tower of knowledge in your organization. And then they won't be tempted to follow that person to another company if they leave. So there is advantages for them as well.
Yeah, we have just a brand new client. Actually, the project's starting today, where their loan programmer, hero programmer, had a heart attack, and he's recuperating. And the doctor and the wife have said, you're not getting your laptop back yet, and he's not allowed to come to work. But now they have no idea how to fix their system or maintain it. And so it can be, people learn the hard way, unfortunately. I can think of many clients where they've learned the hard way that relying on the loan hero is not the solution.
I love your description of the hero programmer. I've never heard that before. That's great. Does anyone have any more questions for Helen and Keely?
I do have a comment though. The comment of being told off because of the board, they were estimates, were just estimates. When we were in person, we would have people come and do tours in person, and this tour happened to be hosted by our founder, Rich, and Rich called me over, and he wanted me to answer questions to the tour about estimation and estimates. And this tour happened to be a group of people from all of the same organization, and they were sitting in a U, and I was standing in the middle of the U, and there was a woman in the middle of the U pestering me question after question about estimates. What do you do if you're wrong? What happens if you're wrong? What happens if you're late? What happens, just question after question about the punishment that I supposedly was going to get if I was wrong about my estimate. And I finally just had to look at her and say, an estimate's just an estimate. We're like, it's okay. We give the knowledge we have when we have it. And she started crying. And I thought, oh my gosh, what did I do to make this woman cry? And it turns out that recently she was a project manager and her bosses were berating her because her team wasn't meeting the estimates and she was getting in trouble and she was being hurt by them. It's not unusual. An estimate's just an estimate, and that's why we work in an iterative fashion where we get to re-estimate. It's why we're always open and honest with our project managers as soon as we know we're going over our estimate, because we want to be able to make decisions as soon as we have all of the information. And if we start punishing people for having bad estimates, then they're just going to give us over estimates.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're all trying to do the same thing and you're being open and honest. Yeah. But you could say, well, I thought this was half a day, but now that I've got into it, I've realized that this isn't right. And then we've not included that. So my new estimate is 2 days, and that's fine. But I'd rather know that rather than to hold my head in the, put my head in the sand, like certain, I don't know, very expected cyberpunk games that aren't tested properly, and clearly the management didn't listen to their testers and developers because maybe they didn't want to hear that their estimates were wrong. But that's another story altogether. I'm just going to do a call out to Gareth then. You say you have many questions. Do you have one more question then?
What's your most burning question?
I will have to look that video. And your most burning question then, Gareth? In my new job.
Where should we start? Oh man. I would start with building your culture and deciding and knowing what you want your culture to be and hiring for your culture. If you find that guy that's like lone wolf, lone programmer, hero, firefighter, and that's not the culture you want, don't hire him, even if he's the smartest guy in the room, because he will take down your team.
I think one thing to add, it may not be the first thing to do, but maybe the next thing is having, after defining your culture, having certain processes to help your team members actually exercise that culture. I think one of the things that makes it easy for me, at least, when I joined Menlo to adapt to that culture, is that there are really set processes of what you do, no matter what project you're working on. So, the stand-up culture is collaborating every day with all of the team. The pairing culture helps with collaborating with your pair partner, and there are other things that we also do, like a kickoff meeting where we have all the people that are going to work on the project at the beginning of the week to sort of share ideas and educate each other and be on the same page. So having defined processes and set times to allow collaboration and interaction amongst your team, I think is really helpful.
Yep. Sean's question, do you pair in the interview? Yes. We do we start with what we call extreme interviewing, affectionately named extreme interviewing. We bring in all the candidates at one evening or afternoon. That could be 50 people. We've done as many as 50 people. We pair them with each other. So they do 3 exercises where they're paired with another interview candidate. And a different one each time, and there's a different Menlonian observing them, and we're not asking them any questions, they're just doing exercises, and the Menlonians are watching to see, and basically asking themselves, would I want to pair with this person for a week? And so that's where the interview starts, and they start paired, and then they come in for a one-day interview where they're paired with another Menlonian, and we're pairing the whole time. We've even been doing some interviewing for other clients, so for our clients to hire people to come in after us, and we're doing the same thing. We're pairing with them and we're observing them to see how they're doing.
HR have never let me get as hardcore as Menlo. Well, Gareth, you should have invited them to the talk. But I'm going to draw things to a close there. Thank you very much, and Keely. I've really enjoyed that, and I think on behalf of everyone here at Digital Lincoln, I'd like to thank you both for taking the time to share that with us. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having us. It's always fun.
Yeah, it was such a pleasure. It was nice meeting you and seeing you and meeting everyone else. All those
Don't be afraid to reach out. Our email addresses are on the screen for a reason. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested in any, tours or anything like that, we'd love to point you in the direction of where you can find those.
Yeah, I would second that. There's a number of tours that are done, via Zoom calls, and I think, if you found this interesting, then it's definitely worth checking it out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.